Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Tuesday, September 16th. Derek Van Riper, Eno Sánchez, and our Phillies writer, senior writer Matt Gelb joining us because the Phillies were the first team to clinch their division. They defeated the Dodgers on Monday night, had a big celebration, and kept Matt up very late in the process. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today.
What's up, guys?
It's kind of wild, man. Like, it's the best time of year to be playing your best ball. Second best time, I guess, actually in the postseason. The Phillies playing really well, 21-9 in their last 30. They got their owner in the clubhouse taking beer bongs. It seems like everything is coming up Phillies at the exact right time. Like, what else is there? And they won in pretty spectacular fashion last night. I would say the clincher last night was probably one of the most exciting regular season games I've seen all year.
It was a great game. I think, Derek, like, the thing that sticks out to me is that they have about the same record. They might have even had the same exact record as they did at this point last year, but they've gotten there in a very different way. Mm-hmm. And I think the talk around this time last year, even when they clinched the division, was kind of like looking over their shoulder, like, they had a great start. They raced to this, like 60-30 record. And that was insulation from what was a pretty bad July and August, kind of backed into it. Just played mediocre ball for the last 3 months of the year, and there was this sort of feeling that things weren't right. It was hard to describe, but because we knew it was a good team, they won the division, but they weren't playing their best down the stretch. And I think this team is the exact opposite of that. I mean, ever since the trade deadline, there's just been a different energy. And I think when you make the moves that they made, that was obviously to upgrade the roster, but also to really show to this roster, this older roster that's been through this a few times now. It's like, hey, this is like, here we go. I mean, like, we got you the pieces that you needed, and like, it's time to go. And they've played with this energy and this confidence. I think that's been really impressive because remember, during this recent stretch, they lost Zach Wheeler in the middle of August for the season. For the last week, they've played without the left side of their infield, Trey Turner and Alec Bohm. All they've done is won 7 out of 8 in the last week to clinch this division. So they're a really confident group right now. And Derek, like you said, it's a great time of year to be confident. And we'll see. I mean, they pretty much, I think, have locked up a bye. I mean, they're 5.5 up on the Dodgers with 11 to go. That's a pretty sizable gap.
You mentioned that it's an older group, and I put together this piece, the thing here, just to look at how old they were in comparison. I was a little bit surprised by some of the things on here, like the Orioles being the third oldest team in baseball, really surprised me. But I think a lot of their role pieces are older guys. It did not surprise me to see Yankees number 1. It did sort of surprise me to see Phillies down all the way down at 7th oldest. Their pitchers were 9th oldest, and their hitters were 4th oldest. So. Talk a little bit about the young players that have kind of joined this core and have been so important for them. It might have changed, a little bit of how people think about the Phillies.
I mean, to me, Cristopher Sánchez has changed the trajectory of everything because it's hard to imagine this thing without Chris Sánchez right now, given that Wheeler is not around. I mean, Sánchez is a bona fide ace, I think, at this point, which is crazy to say because this guy. That his transformation is remarkable. But now we're talking about 2.5 years of one of the best left-handed starters in baseball. And it's hard to deny what this guy does, all the underlying stuff. You've seen, I mean, the changeup is just, it's excellent. And I think that not just the stuff on the field, like you see a guy who has really come into his own with the mental side, right? I think, asking him a year ago or 2 years ago, he was like, hey, your Wheeler's going to go down and you're going to be our guy. You're going to be the guy. You are going to be our game 1 starter. And you'd kind of like, I don't know about that. But this guy is really just, it hasn't phased him. And I think that's important because the rest of the rotation has got some upside, but there are some question marks there. And Sánchez really is, for now, like their lone guarantee. And he really has changed it. The contract they signed him to, is going to allow them to do different things in the future too. So, Jesus Luzardo, to me, has exceeded all expectations. There has been some ups and downs, no doubt. The ERA doesn't look great. I think he's allowed about 20% of his runs this season in a 2-start stretch in late June, which was just really bizarre. But he had one of the best starts I think I've seen all year last week, where he gave up 4 runs in the first inning and then retired like the next 21 in a row or 24 in a row, I think, for the remainder of the game, which was totally bizarre. So he's going to get the Dodgers on Wednesday night. Tuesday night is Sánchez against Ohtani. Phillies will face Ohtani as a pitcher for the first time ever, which will be interesting. So I really think on the pitching side, and obviously, adding Duran, who's only 27 years old. I mean, we look at him and like he's been around for a while now. He's only 27. Has really changed things for them in the bullpen. And it's funny because the two guys they added, Duran, 27, and then David Robertson, 40 years old, who's somehow become, again, like one of their trusted guys. He's pitched well, a lot of strikeouts.
I do want to hear a little bit about the celebration last night. I don't know why I thought of this, but a friend of mine thinks that Handsome Dave is one of the better nicknames in baseball. And I didn't even know that was a nickname for David Robertson until he said that. But were there any sort of notable fun things you noticed during the celebration last night? Was it more of a like muted, we're veterans and we're just going to sip some beer? It doesn't seem like that type of crowd.
No, I mean, it was like tame by Phillies standards, but tame in Philly standards is still like a pretty wild party. Yeah. They know how to party, and like people are like, I know there's people who get upset. They're like, oh, like they're partying. Like this is they have a game against the Dodgers tomorrow night. Like why would they do this? Like I don't know. This team has obviously like it's a long season, and like winning a division is a really big deal. But I think for this team, I mean like the expectations have been so high, and the weight of those expectations is real. I mean, that is an immense thing. And if you get one night to kind of like bask in it and, just party, like, great. I think it's deserved. And like those expectations, they immediately come back today. You might be a little hungover, but I think it's okay.
Yeah, right. We just go right into like, how are they going to do in the playoffs?
Yeah,
and, or how do they match up with their round one? Or whatever.
Right. Here's Shohei Ohtani on the mound. Like, good luck.
Right.
I mean, I think one of the new wrinkles, like, Garrett Stubbs is back this September. He spent the whole year at AAA, and like, he is like their, vibes guy, and everybody jokes about it. But he is really important in that room. Like, trust me, I'm not overstating it. And this year though, he kind of brought a wrinkle in. He brought a beer bong with him from AAA. Like, I guess he had been using it all year, like to kind of build some camaraderie at AAA with like a bunch of the players there. I can only imagine, the AAA beer bong, but they broke that out last night in the middle of the clubhouse, and that was the thing. I mean, Schwarber's like pulling pretty much like every guy, to do it one at a time, and then the owner, John Middleton, is like in the middle of the room, doing a funnel, and it's like, okay, this is new. So yeah, I mean, some of the scenes might have looked like wild, but I can say this having been in all these, like it was rather tame by Philly standards, and I think that's because they know that like, hey, we won the division, awesome. Let's take a moment to have fun. But like, we got bigger goals here.
Let's have a bigger celebration later.
Yeah, we got about 3 more parties, so let's save some for the biggest party of all if we can win the World Series. I mean, I think the question I have about this team is similar to what you were hinting at before. It becomes depth in the back of the rotation. Aaron Nola just hasn't looked like himself post-IL stint. I think that's a little bit of a concern. Maybe some depth questions in the bullpen, even with the addition of Joan Duran and bringing David Robertson in. You could have some games where those middle innings might be the problem. So in these final 2 weeks, what do you think the Phillies are trying to sort out? What are the biggest roles that are still a little bit undetermined for a team that has a lot of things solidified overall?
Exactly that, Derek, the middle innings. I mean, I think there's a lot of questions about, games 2 and 3, like Sánchez, you're hoping is going to give you 6, right? On a playoff start, that's what you're hoping from your game 1 guy. But after that, I think there are a lot of questions about how you handle the middle innings. And, obviously when you get to October, managers are more aggressive with how they treat their starters. And Rob Thompson has been that way in every postseason with the Phillies. So, Ranger Suárez and Jesus Luzardo, if those are your game 2 and 3 stars, which I think they will be, they're probably on shorter leashes, despite them having pitched really well, especially in September. Then you're like, okay, well, what does the middle innings look like? They don't need a 4th starter this year because of the way the schedule works. There's the extra off day on the NL side this year. So in the LDS, you only need 3 starters. So they wouldn't need a 4th starter until game 4 of the NLCS. And that's something you deal with when you get there. Probably Aaron Nola, who you're right, has not been good. But he's your 4th guy. So yeah, whatever. I think Walker Buehler could have a role in this team, not as a starter, but maybe as a guy in the middle innings who's a right-handed fireman. Which sounds insane, but He has had one start with the Phillies. It was fine. It's against the Royals. He'll get another one against the Arizona Diamondbacks later this week. I think there's a role for him. But in the middle, yeah, I mean, Tanner Banks has been a sneaky good pickup for them at last year's trade deadline. He's been one of the best left-on-left relievers this year, and he can get more than 3 outs. I do think that they will look to him in the middle innings. Ryan Kerkering has struggled of late. He's a guy that they need to get back on track. He had this outing last night. If anyone wants to go back and watch it, it was unbelievable. He struck out 3 guys, and in the middle of it gives up a home run. But the strike 3 pitch he threw to Ohtani was probably the best pitch Kerkering has thrown all season. He was an unbelievable fastball on the inner corner of the plate to Ohtani, who took it, and then he tried to go up and in on Betts, didn't get up and in enough. Betts hits a game-tying homer, then comes back and strikes out Conforto, I think, to end the inning. And so Kerkering now has struggled, but he's got great stuff. The bullpen is a little shaky. I do think they're going to lean on Duran for more than 3 outs in a lot of the playoff games, and he's done it. They haven't done it with him yet this season, the regular season, but I think they're going to lean on him.
Yeah, I think it's a really good call. I think he's among the relievers that's done that more recently, and maybe they don't do it as much in the regular season in order to preserve as many innings as possible for the end of the year. Like that makes a lot of sense to me. Buehler is one of those guys, like, even though the strikeouts haven't been there, he's got a 3.66 ERA in the second half. Like, do I trust it in a high leverage spot? No, but at least he's been in those situations before, right? You throw him in there in the 4th inning of a game because someone's getting blown up and you got traffic. There's actually a decent chance he can work his way out of something like that. So interesting pickup, I think, that may end up mattering at some random point in the playoffs.
And how much better could he be if he's sitting like 95 and a half, 96,
rip it.
96. Yeah, and just be like, hey, it's only an inning. So, I could see that working out. But yeah, there's a little bit of it's interesting. It's such as a star-driven team. I feel like you can highlight all the stars really well, and then when you look behind them, I am wondering like how good even the second half of the lineup is. Because Bryson Stott hasn't had the best year, Alec Boehm hasn't had the best year. So what does do you think you could identify somebody? Maybe it is even Boehm if he gets healthy or whatever, but like somebody at the bottom half of the lineup that could be like, the NLCS MVP. I guess Stott, goes in and out. Like he could just have a great series. Is that just the magic to the bottom of the lineup? Is that they're all okay and like in any given 5-game stretch, one of them could be great.
Yeah, I think so. And like 2 guys stick out to me, and that's Brandon Marsh and Harrison Bader, which sounds silly, but Marsh, go look at his numbers since May 1st. And, he was hitless in April. It was wild. I mean, he went hitless for 32 straight at bats, I think. And since May 1st, he's been one of the better offensive outfielders in the sport, which is
look at that. 306 average, 361 OBP, 481 slugging, 32% batting league average with 9 homers. Not bad.
And he's where he should be, and that's left field, right? He's so much better in left field. And getting Bader in the middle of this outfield it's allowed them to do what they wanted to do all along, and that's take some playing time away from Nick Castellanos. And the defensive unit of Marsh in left, Bader in center, and Kepler in right is pretty dang good. I mean, that's a really good defensive outfield, and we've seen it really help the Phillies. And now, so Bader is obviously playing way over his head right now. I mean, this guy is on an unbelievable heater. When he puts the ball in play, it's an extra base hit or he strikes out. I mean, his BABIP, I think, in the last 2 weeks is 690 or something. It's hilarious. But this guy, he's a very confident dude, and he's fit right in. And if I close my eyes right now and somebody's like, Harrison Bader's the NLCS MVP, I'm like, yeah, I can see that. It's ridiculous, but I could totally see that. He's batting leadoff for them right now because Trey Turner is recovering from a hamstring injury. Harrison Bader will not be batting leadoff for them in the playoffs. But you stick him down 6, 7, that's not a bad guy to have down there in the lineup. Turner, they do expect is going to be playing in some regular season games before the season ends. He stayed back in Philly. He was not part of the celebration last night. But he stayed back with a coach and an athletic trainer to just really focus on this recovery. And the initial returns are really good. I mean, I believe he will be on the active roster before the season ends just to get a few ABs. And I think they're really encouraged by what he's been doing.
Yeah, I think that'll be particularly helpful too, since they are so likely to have that first round bye, just to see some live pitching in a game scenario instead of having that long layoff and trying to take live BP and do the things you can do that are close to simulating it. I think that'll make a difference for Turner. Bader's been phenomenal against righties this year. That's been the big surprise. Usually he does all his damage against lefties and has to sort of hold his own at the near below average clip against righties. He's got one season in his career where he's been above average by WRC plus against righties prior to this one, and it was 2021. That was a massive season for him with the Cardinals. So this is the hack with Harrison Bader. You get him to hit righties, he's going to put up some pretty big numbers.
Yeah, and he's selling out. He's taking his A swing way more, and he's pulling the ball in the air, and it's unlocked something for him. I don't know. I don't think he's this good, but I mean, could he be this good for another 6 weeks? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's all you need at this point. All right.
This was the old Harrison Bader, by the way. There was a Harrison Bader that did this and struck out 30% of the time in St. Louis, and I think maybe the park robbed him of some of that power. And so then he kind of changed to more of a line drivey kind of, let's make more contact, let the ball travel a little bit. So it's not that implausible for him to kind of go back to being the way he was and having a park that maybe rewards him a little bit more for it.
And they're okay with this because they need some pull side power. They could use a guy who sells out. I mean, they have cut down on their chase rate significantly, and I know that's what everyone in Philadelphia wants to talk about because the 2023 in LCS, the 2024 in LDS. I mean, their hitters did start to expand and were exploited. But I think there is a little more balance to this lineup. I think especially because of how Turner has adjusted to more of an all fields, get on base, use my speed, my athleticism. You have Schwarber and Harper, two of the most patient hitters or best eyes, I would say, in the sport in the middle there. And I think it's okay if you got a guy like Bader who essentially replaces the Castellanos role of just trying to sell out. And I think he's added something to this lineup. He really has.
Matt, I got one more question before we let you go. It goes back to the pitching side. Ranger Suárez, probably one of the pitchers I've been the most wrong about for his entire career. I keep expecting the other shoe to drop, and especially as the velo has kind of slipped over the course of this year. I don't know how he's doing this right now. So how is Ranger Suárez getting these results even as that fastball continues to lose velo?
Great question. I don't know. I mean, changeup's been better. Curveball was pretty good last night. He has 5 pitches that he can throw to lefties and righties. And he works so well with Real Muto. Real Muto has, it's the last thing that we can't really quantify. And I know there is ways with the tunneling, but, the calling a game is such an art. And Real Muto is especially good at it with a pitcher like Suárez, who it's a real kitchen sink approach. And the fact that he can use his arsenal against both sides does help him. But you're right, Derek. I mean, I don't, what is Ranger Suárez going to get this offseason as a free agent? He's not going to grade on the stuff models, and teams that use that to make decisions are going to stay away from Ranger Suárez. He's not the most durable guy. He's not a 200 inning guy. He's probably not even really a 160 inning guy. But he's a really valuable 130 inning guy who does it with guile. And I don't know, what does he get? I don't know. I mean, he's a fascinating free agent case. He'll get a qualifying offer from the Phillies, and that they fully expect him to reject it, as he should. I'm not really sure what he gets. He's a real weird one.
It's like he's a 38-year-old pitcher stuck in the body of a 30-year-old pitcher in so many ways. The durability, how he does it. Yeah. But somebody out there will definitely find value in it because he continues to put up good per start numbers. And
seems like a Royal somehow.
And he's so good in October, right? I mean, and he just finds a way. It's never really that pretty, but he just finds a way. And that's the kind of guy we've seen in September. Hasn't always been great, but the strikeouts went way up for a 3-start stretch there. And yeah, you're how is this guy doing it? And he's just, he can spot it. And when he's got a bunch of different pitches that he can, really get in a hitter's head.
Yeah, I didn't think as much about that JT Real Muto factor as I probably should either. I think that could be a part of the equation with Ranger sort of maximizing what he does. Matt, we appreciate your time and your insight. We'll get you some much needed rest before you got to get back to the ballpark for Game 2 on Tuesday night.
See you guys. Probably talk to you in October. There'll be a lot to talk about with Phillies.
We will catch up with you again soon. Thanks, Matt. Well, big day around the league Monday. We knew the promotion of Trey Yesavage to Toronto was going to draw some extra eyeballs, and I think it probably went about as well as it could have possibly gone for his debut. How about 19 swinging strikes for Trey Yesavage? The Jays also got a win, much needed win over the Rays. 9 Ks, 5 innings, just 1 earned run, 3 hits, 2 walks. Did it with 69 pitches too, so pretty efficient. The role is still to be determined in the playoffs. Maybe what he does in a couple of turns down the stretch will actually shape what the Jays have in mind for him once we flip the calendar to October. But the stuff model, it backed up what you saw with your eyes. 3 above average pitches, a 113 stuff plus overall, and the concerns about command were still there despite the great results with a 91 location plus. What were your takeaways from the arrival of Trey Yesavage against the Rays on Monday?
Yeah, I think you can see that the fastball command, the slider command was a little bit spotty. That's the only sort of downfall here. Otherwise, I think it's a good 3-pitch mix. Not a lot of side-to-side wiggle, so you'd expect, I'm not sure I expect all the grounders that he got. I'd expect more fly balls. I might expect some homers, but I would expect the strikeouts to continue. When you have this vertical approach, it's easy to miss bats, and it's nice velo. It's a ton of IVB. I think it's top 5 IVB. In terms of vertical movement, in terms of ride, he's got it all. The command, I think, will affect him some. I think it'll be, other teams might sit on him more. On the other hand, it's not. I almost wish that location plus, penalized pitches for being further from the center. You know what I mean? Like, I have a feeling that there's a little bit of binariness in these models where it's like in zone or out of zone, or maybe even close to zone, but not. What I see from his command was not great command, but it's not Joe Boylian, like he wasn't like throwing pitches that nobody even like thought about swinging at, everything was kind of around the zone. And when he missed with the split finger or he missed with the slider, it was mostly down or out of the zone, but close. So I don't see this as terrible command. I think he'll just have run sort of 10, 11% walk rates. He'll run into some games where he walks guys. And so with that in mind, and with how good the season's gone for the Jays and how just solid. I think we've talked a lot of crap on the Royals on the Blue Jays rotation because by projections it doesn't do well, and there are flaws for these guys, but they're solid dudes. They're solid veteran starters. So I don't see Trey Yesavage supplanting any of the top 3 in terms of starting the game, but I do think they want to keep him stretched out for like 3 innings in the middle of the game because their bullpen, isn't the depthiest of all bullpens. So like having Trey Yesavage in to like do 2 or 3 innings and then get you to the back end of your bullpen is going to be great because maybe you really only want 3 or 4 innings from Max Scherzer, or maybe you get 3 clean innings from Bassett and you say that's great. Let's go to Trey now. And in each of these cases, Trey does not really look like anybody else on that roster in terms of release point, velo, stuff. So he will be a change of pace for everybody.
I noticed a message from Tau Steve on Blue Sky. I still refuse to call those things the S words. Does the arm angle for Trey Yesavage, very over the top, like 50-degree range, is that something that's actually hard to replicate with traject? I've thought about that more from the perspective of the low slot funky relievers, right? That Tyler Rogers, like, hey, that's going to work because you're just not going to find a lot of ways to see it before you're in it. Is that actually a thing that becomes an issue for those machines when you get to a certain level of over the top? It's counterintuitive to me because the original pitching machines, the Iron Mikes, were so over the top. They were completely over the top. So kind of funny that could be maybe a little bit of a blind spot now.
I mean, I think extreme angles are hard for models. I'm ready. I'm waiting for the second day stuff plus numbers for Yesavage, the days that have actual arm angle instead of guessed arm angle in them. So I know that extreme arm angles can be tough on things, but I do remember from standing, we didn't stand in on a traject. We stood in against a competitor, but we stood in against Verlander, who's, not quite over his top, but he's closer to over the top. And there was a lot more room at the top, for that arm angle to go up. So I think up there is easier than, because there are other guys that throw close to Yesavage. I mean, Nick Pivetta is a guy that I think of, this is kind of like the split finger version of Nick Pivetta, where he's got a split finger instead of a curveball. So 50s, you got to be able to do. It's the guys who, Chad Bradford's and Tyler Rogers, like, are you going to make a machine that is, solves how much more money you can spend on the machine to solve like two more guys? That's the question. I think that Yesavage is more in a line where there's 10 or 15 of them. So like we need to have those in there.
I want the Chad Bradford pitching school to become a thing. No, but to your point about the Jays staff overall, I think part of it, as far as the rotation not getting a lot of hype, Kevin Gausman took a step back last year, and he's pitching through an injury. I think that's part of the analysis that gets somewhat forgotten. He's been great this year, 3.44 ERA and an even 1 WHIP. That's the best WHIP of his entire career. He's kind of back closer to a strikeout per inning, still a notch below that.
His velo back.
And he's giving them a ton of depth. These last 3 starts, he went complete game shutout against Houston last time out. He went 8 innings of 1-run ball against the Yankees the start before that, 7 innings of 1-run ball against the Brewers the term before that. So, you have 3 likely playoff teams on the ledger.
Easy.
He's taking wear and tear off of a bullpen that needs it too, aside from pitching really well.
Well, and also just an easy game 1 starter where you're like, hey, please go deep, because every inning you pitch makes it easier on our game 2 and game 3 plans, But yeah, like what's your bullpen pecking order look like for this team? I mean, how deep do you trust them?
I've said all year I like Jeff Hoffman more than the results so far. I keep thinking the best 6 weeks from Jeff Hoffman maybe haven't happened yet. So maybe starting today and through the end of the season, that's when we're going to get those. I mean, how deep does this group go for me? That's a great question, man.
I mean, I like Sir Anthony Dominguez. And what we're seeing is Brendan Little, Braden Fisher, and Louis Varland are getting a lot of work recently. And I would suggest to you that that's because they think maybe internally that one of those 3 guys can leapfrog Yairo Rodriguez and maybe even Sir Anthony. Like that, those 3 guys are going to be really important for their playoff push. So maybe you trust Hoffman and Sir Anthony, and then to be determined among Brendan Little, Braden Fisher, and Louis Varland, who all have pretty interesting stuff plus numbers, good strikeout rates, and have been winning and holding games, over this last week.
Yeah, Fisher's been really good all year. He's kind of in the A unit for me. I think it's at least a good enough like group of 4 that you trust. They have enough to be a team that makes the deep run to October. It's not it's not an extreme liability. They put enough resources into it over the course of the winter at the trade deadline to add depth, to add impact. You have a couple of wild card middle, like Eric Lauer's an extra guy. He's pitched really well as a starter for them.
Trey Yesavage might
Trey Yesavage. So you probably can shorten up your list of high leverage short inning guys because of some glue that you have available. Sir Anthony Dominguez, I think, has always just made me nervous because the walk rates have always been higher than you'd like, right? So I'd rather have him as my 4th or 5th reliever. And I think that's kind of what he is, just based on the other options they have. And I think you're right. They're battle testing some of those younger options now to make sure that they've got the pecking order right themselves going into the playoffs.
But what an amazing year for them. We're going to have to check in with our Mitch Bannon from covering the Blue Jays. There's a really nice note in Slack today from Richard Deitch talking about how he has been just a fan the Blue Jays this year, and he's been enjoying Mitch Bannon's writing. So we'll have him on the pod soon.
Yeah, I think Mitch will be lined up to join us next Tuesday. The thing about the Jays that I think makes them fun from a fan perspective is you probably couldn't find anybody projecting them as a team that would win the division, maybe even projecting them as a wild card team this year. You know, I looked at them as a team that might exceed expectations, play closer to 500, be pesky. This is a huge surprise. Those are some of the best seasons as a fan when your team is much better than expected. And then you start to kind of dissect it and say, it's legit, though. It's not this pop-up team that got really lucky. I think they're well built. And I think the way the AL is this year, anything can happen. Can happen any year, but this seems like a very wide open year on the AL side. Beyond that debut from Trey Yesavage, some good news. Bo Bichette did get a second opinion on his knee injury. That second opinion confirmed he does not need surgery on his sprained PCL. So very good news. Bo Bichette still has a chance to return. No, still a chance to return for the playoffs is where they're sitting right now. So too early to call it, I guess, is the way we have to label it right now. We did have a mailbag question that came in, inspired by comments made by Buck Martinez during a recent Jays-Orioles game, not necessarily unique to Buck Martinez. It comes from Brock Ness Monster in our Discord, and Brock wants to know, why do broadcasts mention batter versus pitcher splits? Because we on the analyst side and the fantasy side know that those splits have no predictive value, and I think we can assume that there's no major league team that puts any sort of stock into individual batter versus pitcher matchups. We agree on that premise, right? No team is looking at an 0 for 3 and saying, well, there it is. We have something here to work with, right? Like, it probably doesn't mean anything. So why do we think batter versus pitcher matchup splits are such a prevalent part of broadcast beyond Toronto? Again, this is not at all picking on Buck Martinez. You can hear it on national games. You can hear it on just about every local broadcast. My assumption, is that it's just an extra little nugget that they like to throw out there to fill up space, not to tell you anything other than this is what's happened when these two guys have played against each other in the past, and take it or leave it. I don't think it's inferred to have a lot of meaning, but maybe I'm giving too much benefit of the doubt.
I mean, in the longer text of this question, Buck was wondering why they would have changed the defensive arrangement against Addison Barger when it went from a 3-1 count to a 3-2 count, and saying that they shouldn't have had to do that because Barger was over 3 against this pitcher anyway. And so, likely he was. So I do think actually broadcasters believe in it. I don't know that locally. We have a phrase on the Giants podcast: "Ownage is ownage." When they bring up batter versus pitcher, and I think that it makes a lot of sort of intuitive sense to be like, oh yeah, he sees him really well and he's done this. But and I do think that it is one of the oldest beliefs in baseball that just won't go away. I've talked in the press box where I've literally just had a conversation with 2 other writers in the press box. So I was like, why do people use BBP on the broad? Like I had this conversation and they were like, I was like, it means nothing. It adds nothing. It gives you no information. It shouldn't be up on the screen. It shouldn't be anywhere. It doesn't do anything. And they were like, but it is what happened. And I'm like, so I think that there still are people that believe it. I think that there's part of the question is, why don't they tell Buck not to do this? Because it doesn't mean anything. And I think that there's an audience question. I believe that there are enough people in the audience who still believe that batter versus pitcher matters, so that's part of it. You don't tell them not to do it because there are expectations in the audience to hear it and they want to know it. Right. The second part is that I think that, there was a question like, why don't they go and explain it to him? Well, first, I think that part of the answer is politics. You want to send an analytics guy to the broadcast team to tell him that he's saying something wrong? Like, how do you think Buck's going to take that?
It's not a good idea.
It's not going to go over well. And that R&D person's job is not to inform the broadcast. It's to win games. And that's my last answer is that I think, so then Buck might say, well, what do you use? And that's where the conversation kind of has to stop to some extent, because you do not want your broadcaster telling, what I would guess in this situation is Addison Barger's spray chart changes with a 2-strike count. So he has a 2-strike approach. And it's not so much even about this specific matchup. It's just, we got to 2 strikes. Now he's going to protect. He's going to shorten up. He's going to go the opposite field. Let's not, do a big pull thing on him. And then lastly, there are times when, yes, they do batter versus pitcher, but it's not batter versus pitcher like this batter versus this pitcher. It's a guy with a 40-degree tilt, and 70 mile per hour bat speed against a pitcher with a 20-inch vertical IVB fastball that loves to pitch high in the zone. Not a good matchup for us, right. That sort of stuff they do. And so if you got to that part of the conversation with Buck and you started having Buck talk about, batter tilt and how they're making their matchups on that might actually be problematic. You might actually give away something. So that's why you don't send your R&D guy to tell them. And I'm not making fun of the question at all. I think it's a great question, but I think what it leads you into is how teams work and what they want to give away, what they don't want to give away. And I think to some extent they're just happy to let the broadcaster say what he needs to say, to maybe an audience that expects to hear it.
Well, and it doesn't hurt them for him to say that. It just doesn't move the conversation or the way fans think about the game in a forward sort of direction, right? That's the main sort of problem, I think, with continuing as it is. And I think the not predictive aspect of that is important to emphasize one last time, only because just because it's not predictive doesn't mean it has zero value. And it has value in the sense that how that pitcher and other pitchers might compare. That's where you can stretch it out, right? Like the sample individually doesn't matter, but that hitter does against that pitcher could matter more in a bigger sense. If you said, hey, here are the high ride fastball guys, and this is how this guy hits against high ride fastballs. I don't think we're ever going to get there on a regular broadcast. It's going to be a nerdcast only sort of thing.
Maybe, but also what you brought up, this idea of not predictive, maybe we're just inferring that people find it predictive, or maybe that's true. People do find it predictive. Maybe they could tell you that it's not predictive, but it does still have story value. But maybe it doesn't have story value when it's 0-for-3, and who cares, But I would actually like to hear if somebody is like, dude, this guy is 3 for his last 50 against this pitcher. Because then if he does get that hit, even if it's not predictive, I'd still be like, woo!
See, right. It adds a little bit of color, even though it doesn't add a lot of actual meaningful analysis. So there you go. But thanks for that question, Brock. We really appreciate that. All right, 2 great guests on the show today. Chandler Rome joins us as the Astros injury cloud grows yet again. Chandler, thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, Yordan Alvarez got hurt again. And that was after I extended an invitation to get you back on. It's not, I take no responsibility for anything happening with this team. It's completely out there. I can't believe the bad luck they are dealing with. In this instance, Alvarez got hurt crossing home plate. Guys cross home plate all the time. Usually nothing happens. And in this instance, what could he have done? Slid? Is that simple?
I guess if you really want to get micro in it, he could have stopped, because third base coach Tony Perez-Chica did have the stop sign up. He ran through his stop sign. But as Joe Espada said, both after the game and then I just listened, he did his weekly hit on the flagship radio station a couple of minutes ago. No update on Alvarez, first of all, but he did mention that, that play, if you watch the play, Jack Leiter threw a PFP into right field. And so Adolis Garcia was coming up from right field to throw home. Alvarez, that play's in front of him. So when Joe went back and watched the tape, he said, yeah, Tony was holding him up, but Yordan has just as much authority because he can see the play. It's in front of him, and he saw Yordan look toward the ball, look where it was, and he knew he was going to score easily. I guess he could have slid, but it was so morbidly appropriate. It was so it was. And it was so morbidly appropriate for this Astros season that it was a good thing that happened. This is the homestand that's going to define their season. 3 against the Rangers, 3 against the Mariners. And in the first inning, they score 2 runs. This team has struggled to score runs for most of the second half. They score 2 runs. They get out to a big lead. The crowd's amped. And then as the second run hits home plate, it's Yordan Alvarez's ankle. So it sounds really cliche, but they can't do anything at this point without having a cloud of just injury stuff hanging over them. Even, moments that should be celebratory, moments that should be jubilant, get just really, really muted by what's happened. So Yordan didn't talk to the media last night. I saw him leave the clubhouse in a walking boot and using crutches. There's 11 games left in the season. There's 13 days left in the season. Even if he goes for an MRI today and it's positive, I find it hard to believe that he'll be ready to go anytime soon. I mean, these things don't heal overnight. And you guys watched the clip. Like, he wasn't putting much weight on anything. He had to be helped down the stairs. Like it, and Joe Espada even said after the game, it did not look good at all.
No, I just rolled over the outside of that left ankle when he came down. Like all of his weight, he was running full speed. Just if he's back in 2 weeks, if they make the playoffs and he's playing in the playoffs, that is an amazingly positive outcome based on what our eyes told us on Monday night.
Baseball Prospectus has the injury ledger. It's really cool. Derek Rhodes does a lot of good work on this. Craig Goldstein over at BP, all great work here. But the Astros lead the league in value missed when it comes to injuries. And I just wanted to put. I know it's a little bit unfair because in this particular situation, it's all happening right now. And so they're not going to tell you anything more about Yordan's ankle than they can right now. But we have set this up against Kyle Tucker's injury and also the injury, even the injuries back to Jose Altuve in the past, and then Yordan's hand injury earlier this season, where the team has just given very little information. I remember a scrum where we're trying to ask Jose Altuve about his knees, and he's saying you have to talk to the team about that, which is that the team's not going to say anything. So, just set against this data point being like they've lost the most days to injury, and then set against the way that they talk to reporters about injury and the way that they maybe even talk to their own players about injury. Do you think there's something unhealthy going on when it comes to injury in the Houston Astros, or is it just like they don't want to give information, and so we're dealing with incomplete information sets on the outside because they won't tell us anything?
Oh man, I got to be careful on this one.
Yeah.
I want to start what I'm about to say with this. I am not a medical professional. I do not know the inner workings of how you get guys back on the field, of how to prevent injuries, or of how to rehab injuries. I did not go to medical school. Unfortunately for my wallet, I went to journalism. So let's start with that. As far as preventing injuries, like I'm not sure that they have a problem with injury prevention. I mean, Jeremy Pena broke his ribs because he got hit by a pitch. Yordan Alvarez last night, that couldn't have really been prevented. Like they've had some pitchers have elbow surgery, but pitchers are built to break down.
Everyone's doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like Kyle Tucker, the injury you referenced from last year, he fouled a ball off his shin. Like that's not, this is not like stuff the team is doing. Now, you just put that graphic up, and if you can see that, and if I can see that, I'm going to bet that Jim Crane, the owner of the team, can access this in some form. And the only way that things, I believe, are going to change, or there's going to be any meaningful change enacted, is if it comes from the owner. I mean, it comes from the top. He has to see this, and he has to see that, I hate to talk about baseball players this way, but he's got a lot of money sitting on the injured list. He's got a lot of his most valuable assets that he pays a lot of money sitting on the injured list. And where the Astros have run afoul and where the Astros have some serious questions is getting these guys off of the injured list. It's the return to play procedure. James Click in 2022, when they acknowledged they rushed Jake Myers back from a torn labrum. He tore labrum in his shoulder, again, crashing into the wall, making a catch. That's a baseball.
And he lost a lot of power. He wasn't that good of a hitter when he came back.
Right. James Click admitted that they rushed him back in 2022. James Click went on the team's flagship radio station, actually on the radio broadcast, not even on the radio broadcast, and said, we need to review our return to play procedure.
Wow.
James Click got fired a month and a half later. To this point,
so did that work get done?
At this point, I do not believe that return to play procedure was ever evaluated. And the questions around it have only intensified this season. You had the Alvarez incident where they let him take live batting practice at Dyken Park against minor league pitching. His hand still hurt. He went for a follow-up image, and oh yeah, there's a fracture in there. And they didn't think to get imaging done on him before he went and took live BP. They didn't think to re-image it. The Kyle Tucker thing from last year, they insisted for months that it was a bone bruise. Turns out it was a fracture. He had a fracture in his shin, and that's what caused him to miss 4 months, not a bone bruise. Jake Myers this year had a calf thing that was nagging, just kind of something that didn't need to go on the IL, but just wasn't feeling great in his calf. He had missed 2 or 3 games. We got to the ballpark early that third game he was going to miss, and he was doing some running in right field, doing some cardio, and strength staff was watching, the training staff was watching, Joe Espada was watching, and they cleared him to play in the game that night. And he crumpled to the ground in center field before a pitch was thrown. He got hurt running out to his position. Again,
wow.
I'm not sitting
I don't think
here
I knew
saying,
that about the Myers thing. I did not know that about the Myers thing.
I'm not sitting here saying that there is, because I don't know. I don't know what their return to play policy is, because they won't let anyone involved in it talk to us. We have requested the trainers, we've requested the doctors, and bear in mind, there are other teams in the sport that make their trainers available on a regular basis. It's clear something is wrong. There is something not right here. I'm just not smart enough to tell you what it is. I think it is certainly something that Dana Brown, the general manager, Jim Crane, the owner, they're going to have to explore this offseason, because, look, we don't know how this season's going to end up. We don't know where they're going to go. But if this team falls short of its expectations, and in this era, the Astros' expectation is ALCS is a bare minimum. If they fall short of that, like, injuries are first and foremost to blame. And they've got to figure out why they seem more prone to more injuries and why they struggle to get guys back from injuries. It has been the story of their season. It's been the story of their season, and it's something they're going to have to take a hard look at this winter.
Yeah, I think the first part of that, as you kind of outlined, there's a lot of things that just happen to ball players that you cannot control. They will run into walls. Pitchers will tear up their elbows and shoulders. You will foul balls off of your legs. These things happen. They happen to every team. That's not anything you can change. But that return to play protocol, that is something you absolutely can change, whether that's increasing communication or different things you do in rehab or any number of things. I also
just the order of things.
It sounds like mistake on my part.
The order of things, right? It's like you pointed out, like, get the image before you do the live BP. And I think that, like, there should be probably some red flags that jump up. It's like, okay, he's got a bone bruise that the normal timeline is, 4 to 6 weeks. Hey, we're like 8 weeks out and he's still reporting pain. Let's get another image. You know what I mean? Like, maybe they're just trying to cut costs on images, and they don't want to send them to the MRI because it's too expensive. But there's definitely something going on there.
I'll say this too. A little bit of it was a communication and a transparency problem, because as you guys kind of hinted at,
they won't tell you anything.
They won't tell you anything because they don't make the trainer available. They don't make the doctor. And again, I'm not sitting here wanting to ask the trainer what medicines these guys are taking. I'm not trying to read their MRI images. I'm not trying to get an in-depth medical history here. Like, I'm trying to know for myself so I can report stuff that's accurate. But part of this too, like, the Tucker thing suffered more from just a lack of communication, a lack of transparency to the public, because as it grew from 1 month to 2 months, there's an entire fan base and really an entire sport that's looking around like, this dude's missing 2 months for a bruise. And then, like, with Alvarez earlier this season, before they finally came out and said, oh yeah, he's got a fracture that we finally found on imaging, like, they kept saying, oh, it's hand inflammation. It's hand inflammation. And everyone's like, he's missing 2.5 months with hand inflammation. Like, there's something not right here. And part of it is the player gets mad because
that's what I'm saying. It's a disservice to the player. Not only do the player get mad, but, like, the fans get mad at the player because they're like, oh, it's just a bruise. Why are you gone? You're like, oh, it's just inflammation. Get out there.
For lack of a better word, they make the players look soft. They make the players look soft and spoiled to be like, oh, he has a bruise. He's not going to go risk it. Well, no, like he's got a fracture, or he's got a fracture too. So now I will say this: since I think they reached rock bottom with the Jake Myers thing may have actually been rock bottom, but the Alvarez disaster was rock bottom for them. They have improved in communication since then. They're still not making the trainer available, but every Monday in the Astros game notes now, we get a list of, here are the guys in the IL and here's what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And we've got a list of, hey, they're in Florida throwing. This guy had an MRI and it showed this. This guy's still feeling pain. So, and that helps, just selfishly as a reporter, that helps us out more than anything. Because the problem also is, like, you're forcing Joe Espada, who has 18 other things on his mind other than like describing
to always give you the injury updates.
Yeah. and look, Joe's not gonna be the guy that goes on the record and says, "Oh, well, my guy's struggling." He's always going to want a positive tone, wants to keep optimism, wants to be optimistic. So everything's going to be something about, "Oh yeah, he's feeling better today. We're getting close." And then Dana Brown, who is put in a situation that he gets paid handsomely. He's the general manager of a baseball team. Like, I'm not going to say he's put in an unfair situation, but when Alvarez, when they told us about the Alvarez fracture, like Dana was up there talking about like bone calcification and like metacarpals and like stuff that is completely out of his league, and stuff that, in my mind, I'm thinking he had to have talked to the trainer before he came out and talked to us.
Who knows this better?
Yeah. Trainer, team doctor. Like, they could have put somebody else at the microphone to explain that.
If the trainer's going to explain to Dana Brown, hey, here's how you explain this, why not let the trainer, who is an expert in his field, why not let him come? And again, I completely understand. There are teams that do not make their trainer available and say, we're going to do it this way. That's fine. The Astros have adhered to that. They say, we're not going to do it. That's not our policy. That's great. But other teams don't have these problems. Other teams do not have these problems to this extent with these sort of big name players. And it's something that, again, I don't know what needs to be fixed. I don't know if anything needs to be fixed, but it's something they're going to have to take a long look at this winter.
Yeah, certainly a big interest internally to get this right, to get these recoveries done correctly. Since today's Tuesday, that means yesterday was Monday. Good ComArts journalism work on my part here. Any updates on Josh Hader and Isaac Paredes from the aforementioned game notes?
Oh, yeah, they actually did. Josh Hader is still not throwing. I'd be surprised if he throws a pitch for the Astros again this season. Maybe if they get ALCS World Series, maybe he's back. Maybe he's in a better position by then. But I mean, he hasn't thrown now for about a month. And the way Hader explained it, as long as I'm a no-throw, as many weeks as I'm a no-throw, I'm going to need that much time to build up, even though he's a reliever. Like, I get it. But I have a hard time believing that unless he starts throwing like imminently, I have a hard time believing that he'll be back for certainly not in the regular. He's already acknowledged that he won't pitch again in the regular season, but wild card ALDS, I still find it kind of hard to believe that he'd be back for that. Isaac Paredes, however, they seem very optimistic. They seem very confident that they're going to get him back in some capacity. I say this with the caveat of they shipped him to Florida and to West Palm Beach to do all his rehab. And all the reports that we're getting from Joe Espada, Dana Brown, is that he looks great. None of us have laid eyes on him. It's the benefit of shipping him to Florida. None of us can see him. So we have to take them at their word that he looks good. But it's pretty clear if he comes back, like he's not going to play defense. It's going to be in a DH role. And in a morbid twist of some positivity, if
replacing another DH.
If Yordan Alvarez is out for an extended period of time and Isaac Paredes is ready and can contribute, well, you have a DH. So if there's, I never want to say a player getting injured as any silver lining or anything, but if Isaac Paredes does come back and this Yordan Alvarez ankle sprain is as, not good as it looked, then they do have a pretty open, seamless walk for Paredes to be the DH. Now, if Isaac Paredes hits a single, is he able to go first to third? Is he able to really let it go running the bases? Like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're going to feel comfortable with him having to run that much if they want to start him at DH. Is it a pinch hit?
Did you ever get a diagnosis?
Yeah, it was a hamstring strain.
But did they tell you what grade it was?
We asked and we didn't get that. But they classified it as a severe right hamstring strain. It was to the point, where
I thought he wasn't coming back.
Surgery was on the table.
So he didn't have surgery. Okay. I don't know any of these things.
So surgery was on the table for Paredes. He opted to get a PRP injection, platelet-rich plasma. He opted to get a PRP injection and try to come back this season because if he would have had the surgery, according to Dana Brown, it would have been a 6-month recovery. So that would have taken him out into next season as well. So
wow.
The mere fact that he has progressed to the point where he's doing baseball activities, he's taking live at bats in West Palm, that's good for the Astros, like going forward into 2026, that this doesn't seem like it's going to be something that's going to really impact him. But I don't know if they do get him back, I don't know what they're going to get out of him this season or how much it can really trust him to. I mean, if you're in a playoff game and he singles in the 8th inning and you're down 2 runs, like he's got to go you got to get him and you can pinch run, do all that stuff. But like, do you feel comfortable in like a playoff game if you need him to go first to third, or if he needs to score from second on a shallow single and has to slide into home plate? Like, I don't know the answer to all this stuff. So that's all stuff they have to weigh, but I think they'll take the trade-off because this team has struggled to score runs for the better part of 2 months now. And it really does coincide with Paredes going on the injured list.
So they're in the midst of a really important stretch. Got the win last night, despite losing Alvarez. Zach Cole hits his first big league homer, put on the superhero cape, at least for one night. Zach Cole's an interesting player. There's just a lot of swing and miss in that profile that I think is going to be problematic as big league pitchers get more of a look at him. How are they going to weather this, especially on the pitching side? I mean, Jason Alexander started last night. He's got a 2.17 ERA in his last 8 starts somehow. I can't explain it. Maybe you could, but like AJ Blubaugh is going to start tonight. Christian Javier still working back from Tommy John's going on Wednesday. How are they going to have enough starting pitching behind Hunter Brown and Fromber to keep weathering the storm if they do get into the postseason?
The weird thing is I think they feel a little bit better about their starting pitching than they do their bullpen. Because if you go look at their bullpen right now, Brian Abreu is obviously the closer in Josh Hader's absence, but look at the guys they're handing the ball to get him there. It's Craig Kimbrell, who is walking a lot of guys and is not really pitching in much leverage. And Yel De Los Santos has been a revelation for them, but again, he's committed like 6 pitch clock violations since he's come to the Astros, and it hasn't been aesthetically pleasing. Brian King has been a great guy for them all season. He's a reverse splits lefty that is giving up like a 900 OPS to left-handed hitters, but a 500 OPS to right-handed hitters. I think they feel
also
honestly
sits 92. Like the 2 setup guys sit 92.
Right. I think they feel a little bit better in general, maybe because their starters like at least have done it. Like you have Hunter Brown, you have Framber Valdez, Christian Javier like started a no-hitter in the World Series. Like he's been there, he's done it. They feel decent about those 3 guys. They need Framber Valdez to pitch better than he's pitched in his last 8 starts if they want to do anything. But yeah, I mean, they're just going to kind of piece it together and kind of hope that Jason Alexander, that the lightning doesn't leave the bottle too quickly. AJ Blubaugh is a guy that they've been really impressed by. They think of him more as a bullpen arm, as a reliever going forward. He's more of a bullpen piece, but at this point, like he's been a starter all year in the minor leagues, but they need guys that can give them innings. So AJ Blubaugh is going to start tonight. He's pitched very well for them. You look at his major league line since his debut, he's pitched very well for them. So it's a lot of guys that haven't done it before. It's a lot of guys that are unproven, but sometimes it kind of works and you're seeing it with Zach Cole now, like sometimes that works to your advantage when you're relatively new. Other teams don't have a book on you, don't have a ton on you. You can kind of surprise them a little bit. That only lasts for so long that teams are going to get the book on you and scouting reports are going to get out. But I think for now they think they're in an okay position. But look, let's make no mistake here. Like their margin for error is minuscule. Like they need to hit. Like their lineup is obviously Alvarez probably won't be in it for a while, but like their lineup, you look at the names on the lineup and you're like, this lineup should mash. And they have the 7th fewest runs in baseball. Like to get where they want to get in the postseason and to maybe finish this division out, like they're going to need to score runs. They're going to need to hit, and they're going to need to take pressure off of this pitching staff, because the way they're playing right now, like they don't get blown out, but they don't blow teams out. So every game is a 3-2, 3-1, 4-1, 4-2 game. And when you've got a pitching staff that has had so many injuries, like we just talked about, it is putting way too much pressure on them to be perfect when they're not equipped to be.
I am really surprised by this. Somehow this got on the radar for me. Over the last 30 days, the Houston offense is 24th in baseball with a 237, 303, 380 slash line. So it hasn't gotten better.
No.
In fact, it seems to be getting worse.
And that was with Yordan hitting like he usually does coming off the IL before.
Right.
Like
and bear in mind too, like they spent their whole, like when this season is over, we'll have some reflections on the trade deadline, but they banked on, they went to the deadline wanting to improve their lineup. They got Carlos Correa, they got Ramon Urias, they got Jesus Sanchez to augment their lineup. Dana Brown thought the prices for pitching were too high and said, we're going to bank on the guys coming back from Tommy John. Well, Lance McCullers got put in the bullpen. That was one guy they were banking on. Spencer Arrighetti.
And now he's hurt again, right?
Yes. Spencer Arrighetti. Spencer Arrighetti hurt his elbow. He's on the IL. Luis Garcia hurt his elbow again. He's on the IL. The only guy that has come back from the IL that has not had something catastrophic happen to him is Christian Javier. So it's safe to say that they whiffed at the deadline. Like the thought of just letting the pitchers off the IL come back and that's going to be enough was misguided. But let's look at what they did do. They went and they wanted to augment their offense. Carlos Correa has been fine since he got here. The slug is still not there. The power's probably not going to be what it was earlier in his career, but he's hitting around 300 since the Astros reacquired him. Ramon Urias is kind of a spot utility guy, doesn't play much. Jesus Sanchez has 12 extra base hits in his Astros tenure since the trade deadline. He hit 9th yesterday in the Astros lineup. That has not gone well. He has not provided maybe that middle of the order thump from the left side that they thought they were going to get from him. I'm not putting this all on Jesus Sanchez, but he's been a disappointment. Christian Walker has not had the season I think anyone envisioned him having, nor has Yainer Diaz. Jose Altuve's last 2 months have been pretty abysmal. And look, if Jose Altuve's not hitting, and if Christian Walker and Yainer Diaz, if one of them is not going to turn the corner, I don't really see this improving much, but it's there. Like, you know that the pieces are there. You're just kind of wondering when it's going to turn the corner.
Yeah, you're just left to wonder, are the projections going to come through, right? Are the numbers you've been expecting actually going to show through at the exact right time?
Right.
It might end up being worse than a whiff at the deadline because of the Correa deal. Because bringing that on, I'm looking at their finances for next year. It looks like they might be over or right at the luxury tax, if not even close to over the luxury tax to begin the season next year.
Now, they do have the Rafael Montero contracts coming off the books. The Jose Abreu contract is coming off the books. Framber Valdez is not coming back here next year. His salary will come off the books. Victor Caratini is a free agent. That's $6 million that'll come off the books. Without looking at it, I think you're probably right. I think they probably will hover kind of around there. I think the non-tender deadline could be really interesting because
you're right, because you're looking at some actual savings they can make with Chas McCormick.
Right, like
might
he's
be $5.
Pretty logical non-tender. I mean, at this point, I don't know if Jesus Sanchez survives the tender deadline because they've got Cam Smith. Like, Cam Smith is their right fielder of the future. And they went and got Jesus Sanchez to help this team, which this team needed another left-handed bat. Like they needed the 2025 Astros needed Jesus Sanchez. But the 2026 Astros, I presume, want Cam Smith in right field, want Jake Myers in center, and they want left field open for Alvarez, Altuve, whoever they want to cycle in there. There's no room for Jesus Sanchez. So maybe if he'd have come here and torn it up and looks pretty good, you could have seen a more clearer future. But I think he's in peril of maybe a non-tender. Again, I don't know that for a fact. A lot of things can change too, but
that'll save him enough money to maybe shop for a starter or something. If they cut Chaz, Jesus, and maybe one or two other guys, they can save $10 million and maybe have 10-15 million to spend on like a veteran starter.
Yeah, and I mean Luis Garcia too. I mean they haven't told us anything about him, but it did not look good when he walked off the mound at Rogers Center. He's due for an arb raise as well. Like I would imagine he's probably a non-tender candidate as well.
I hate that they can do that.
I mean, now I will say
ugly.
It's kind of ugly and it's kind of, I mean, it's a business. It's a cruel business. That's probably the cruelest thing you can do. But they had a similar situation with Jose Urquidy last year and they didn't non-tender him. They just, I think they got him through waivers and just got him off the 40. And I think the Tigers ended up signing him to a minor league deal. And they signed him to a major league deal. And now he's pitching for the Tigers. So they may do it that way. They may do it the Urquidy way. But yeah, I mean, and then you look at, they have Mauricio Dubon and Ramon Urias, who are kind of the same player. Like, yeah, they're both ARB eligible. Who do you choose out of that one? And then, some of these guys have trade value. Like Mauricio Dubon to me would have a ton of value to another team. Like maybe you could swing a trade to maybe help. Chas McCormick's offensive profile has always intrigued people. Jesus Sánchez has been a good player. Like all these guys do have value too. So like it may not be as straightforward as a non-tender. It may be let's try to solve some of our woes by let's see if we can help each other out here. Go find a team.
Trade for a cheap reliever,
Right.
Yeah,
and they're going to need relievers too this offseason. So their offseason is going to be fascinating because they have a lot of decisions to make. We haven't even gotten into the infield yet where Paredes is going to be back. Correa's at third now.
Yeah.
Walker's at first base where Paredes could play. Do they trade Walker? Do they trade Paredes? Do they
who plays second base?
Do they consider trading Jeremy Pena? I don't think they will with 2 years left, but they traded Tucker last year when they knew they weren't going to pay him. So it's shaping like they need to focus on 2025 for now, but we could we could do an hour-long podcast about what their offseason is going to look like because they've got some real fascinating decisions to make.
Well, we'll probably tap you on the shoulder at some point to break that all down. There's still a few chapters to be written here in 2025. We'll see how many to be exact over the course of this week and next week as they try to either win the West or at least grab that final wild card in the AL. Chandler, we appreciate your time and your insight. Thanks again for joining us today.
All right. Thanks, guys.
It's Chandler Rome, great beat writer here at The Athletic covering the Astros. We are going to go, just a reminder, on our way out the door, you can join our Discord with the link in the show description. Find Eno on Blue Sky, enosaris.bsky.social. I am dvr.bsky.social. I think Chandler's over there too, right? You're on Blue Sky, right, Chandler?
Yeah, it's my full name, Chandler Rome, 2 R's in the middle, at .bsky.social.
Yeah, they got to work on that .bsky.social thing. I think we all just got to drop that. Everyone knows what we're talking about. Yeah. Thanks to our producer, Brian Smith, for putting this episode together. We're back with you on Wednesday.
Thanks for listening.